wind is blowing through her hair.
This is William, a reincarnated person from another world. From birth, he lived with 3 undead, a great magician named Gus, a great swordsman named Blood, and a priestess named Mary. Their lives are very peaceful. Gus teaches William how to use word magic. Blood teaches him how to use swordsmanship through practice battles. Mary teaches him survival skills in this world. However, Will knows that they are hiding something from him, and he once peeks at Mary praying before the statue of the Earth Mother Mater. Seeing Mary's body on fire, he rushes to save her, leaving both his arms badly burned. Now he knew that every time Mary prayed, the Earth Mother God gave her bread, which Will ate every day. Mary's body burns every time she prays because she betrayed the Earth Mother God to make a pact with the immortal god Stagnate, who is the enemy of the Earth Mother God. 5 years later, Will still has the burn on his hand, even though it can be treated. He decided to keep it as a souvenir of him and Mary. Having learned from his previous life, he studies hard day and night. So, from the point of view of the 3 undead, he is like a genius. On one occasion, Blood leads him to an abandoned city inhabited by wandering undead. He takes Will down to the underground cellar and then runs away. Will has to find his own way home. Along the way, Will encounters several wandering undead and easily defeats them. Not only that, but he also has mythical weapons. Halfway through, he meets Gus, but Gus's expression is very strange. He casts spells that attack Will in an extremely brutal way. Will still doesn't understand what's going on and why has Gus changed so horribly. Will can return to fight back and finish off Gus, but he realizes that if Gus really wants to kill him, there must be a reason. Will accepts his death from Gus. Gus suddenly smiles and says, "This is just a test," but Will knows that Gus was really serious just now. They return home and decide never to bring up what happened. Then the training continues for Will. Will studies magic in the morning, practices swordsmanship in the afternoon, and gambles together in the evening. Soon Will turns 15 years old. When Gus meets Will in a private room, he wants to ask Will to pretend to lose the duel with Blood. Will asks about the reason, but Gus doesn't answer. Will is angry because Gus is always hiding things from him. Will ignores Gus's words and walks out. The next morning, Mary dresses Will in armor to go to a duel with Blood. The duel starts. Blood attacks repeatedly, causing Will to be full back. After calmly thinking about tactics, Will suddenly pushes Blood to the ground and is about to deliver the finishing blow to Blood, but Will's sword gets stuck in Blood's ribs. The situation is reversed, and he loses the duel. Blood acknowledges Will as an adult and gives him the demon sword. It has a special power that helps the user recover life force after killing a living being. Blood reminds him that if he becomes too dependent on it, he will be possessed by the power of the sword, and then they will tell Will about their origins. About 200 years ago, the Supreme King appeared. His blood and flesh spawned demons that swept across the continent. The demon sword was what made him almost immortal. Gus, Blood, and Mary then led the army into the castle of the Supreme King and obtained the demon sword. But they weren't strong enough to destroy the Supreme King and could only seal him below this temple. At that moment, the immortal god Stagnate appeared, asking them to become undead to protect the seal for eternity. In return, he would help them clean up the remaining demons. 200 years later, the 3 are bound by the seal and cannot leave this land. All contact with the outside world is cut off. At this moment, the immortal Stagnate appears. Gus also joins the battle and unleashes a series of advanced spells that defeat Stagnate. However, it is only a clone of Stagnate. Stagnate actually appears and defeats 3 legendary undead. He comes here to take their souls because they fulfilled their wishes in this world thanks to Will's appearance. For this reason, Gus once wanted to kill Will in the abandoned city. Now Stagnate has the right to take their souls, but he finds Will interesting, so he gives Will a day to think about taking his side. Will blames himself for being trash, for not being able to do anything in his previous life, and this one too. Now, Will reveals that he was reincarnated into this world, but the 3 don't care. Mary says this is not his fault. Will regains his sanity and brings some equipment to fight Stagnate. Stagnate summons an army of undead. They were the heroes who died in the battle 200 years ago. Even so, Will calmly defeats them one by one with his sword skills combined with the word magic. Stagnate witnesses the sight, and it makes him want to possess Will's soul even more. As long as he drinks Stagnate's blood, he will instantly become immortal. Will takes advantage of this opportunity to approach Stagnate, immediately using Overeater to injure Stagnate. A snake suddenly appears from behind Will and binds him, blood into Will's body. While in a coma, Will sees the light god Gracefield. She asks Will why he refused immortality from Stagnate. Will's answer makes her very satisfied. He fully understands the despair of death. He immediately sends a prayer to Gracefield. He swears an oath to the god of light and officially becomes a disciple of Gracefield. With no other choice, Stagnate will destroy Will. Will wipes out the undead with the power of the divine torch. He then continues to attack Stagnate, but Stagnate quickly dodges it and leaves. Stagnate's true targets are Mary and Blood. Will realizes Stagnate's plan, so he quickly returns to the temple. When Will returns, Stagnate is preparing to take their souls, but fortunately, the Earth Mother saves them in time. Right now, Will attacks Stagnate. Blood attacks from behind. Will will take this opportunity to push Stagnate to the wall, followed by consecutive slashes from Will. The Immortal is badly wounded and disappears. A very close victory for Will. Though it all ended well, suddenly Blood and Mary collapse. Since their attachment to the seal is gone, they can no longer continue to exist in their undead form. Blood tells Will to try to live a good life, make a lot of friends, and find things that he cherishes. Mary hugs Will to say their last goodbye. Then, the light god Gracefield leads their souls back to reincarnation. However, Gus begs Gracefield to let him stay here to guard the seal for another 10 years. He hands Will a bag of valuable treasures. He says that people's belief in the light god has declined, so now Will has the task of recruiting more believers for her. Will says goodbye to Gus and leaves the place. After going a long way, he enters a forest. Suddenly, a wild boar attacks him, so he's forced to kill it. It turns out it is the target of a hunter. Will recognizes this hunter as an elf. Will uses the elf's language to communicate with him and demands a portion of the wild boar's meat. Then they have lunch together. Before they both go their separate ways, Will learns that the elf's name is Menel. That night, while Will is sleeping soundly, the light god warns in Will's dream that Menel will get into trouble. He rushes to the nearby village and quickly realizes that Menel is not in trouble, but it is Menel who caused the trouble. Menel is leading a horde of people to this village to plunder. Will doesn't cross his arms and watches, quickly using his overwhelming strength to knock them down. Menel is a hunter from another village, quite famous for regularly killing monsters and protecting people. Since Menel's village has been invaded by demons, leaving women and children there without food or clothes, Menel proposes robbing this village. Menel admits all guilt and asks to be forgiven for the rest. Will not only forgives him, but also promises to help him defeat the demons in his village. Menel leads Will to his village. Immediately, Will bursts into the demon's lair and uses magic to bond the demon leader. Next is to destroy the small demons and finally finish off the demon leader. Menel also helps Will with support from behind. They go around the village looking for survivors. There was a boy about to become an undead. The boy reaches out his hand to Menel, but he hesitates. Will picks up the boy and comforts him. Seeing Will's noble deeds, Menel wants to become a follower of the light god through Will's approval. The next day, to have money to rebuild the village, Will and Menel go to excavate the ruins. On the way, they see an uncle and a lolly girl being chased by a giant ape. Will rushes over to help them. As a result, the ape feels Will's power is too overwhelming, so it walks away. This lolly girl is a troubadour with the nickname B, and this man named Tonio, who accompanied B. The two were on their way back to White Sails when they were chased by the ape. Menel offers to be their bodyguard. In return, Tonio must help him establish relationships with the merchants in White Sails. After that, they reach White Sails safely. Because Will is a believer in the gods, he stopped by the city's church. However, the low-ranking bishop here has never heard the light god. Luckily, the archbishop shows up and asks Will a few questions. Then he recognizes Will as a true believer of the light god. Suddenly, the warning bells ring, and a wyvern appears inside the city. The high priest is not present here. Will asks Menel to use wind magic to make the wyvern fall to the ground. Next is the binding spell from Will. Immediately, Will rushes to stab it with his spear, but to no avail. The wyvern begins to rampage and is about to set fire to destroy the city. However, Will remembers Blood's teaching and rushes to break the wyvern's neck in front of everyone. Prince Ethelbald heard the news, so he calls Will to thank him. Ethelbald appoints Will as a knight. Will now be controlled by both the church and the king. Will then goes to the Adventurers Guild to gather an army. As expected, the adventurers want to fight alongside Will, who has once destroyed the wyvern. Among them, there's a powerful man named Rastov the Penetrator. A few days later, Will's group comes to the aid of villages attacked by monsters. At this time, Will's group is going to find the reason behind this, but Will's group is trapped and surrounded by hundreds of beasts. Will and Menel cast spells that enhance the skills of everyone. Thanks to that, they are able to gradually repel monsters. But a three-headed beast appears and attacks Menel from behind, severely wounding him. Will is enraged and pulls out his demon sword and charges at hundreds of monsters. Thanks to the power of the sword, Will is now like an immortal warrior that terrifies both beasts and his comrades. The monster scatters and runs away. Will approaches Menel to heal him, but before he can, he's exhausted from the impact of the sword. Fortunately, Menel is still alive. Will and Menno discuss a new battle plan with everyone. The next day, Will's party finds the beast's lair. The two sides lunge at each other. Will and Menno work together to find the three-headed beast for revenge. After a while of struggle, the three-headed beast is destroyed. The two go looking for the leader of the beast, but it has already been slain by Raystop the Penetrator. So Will successfully rescues the village, and also becomes a holy knight. This will be a stepping stone for Will to become an earl to rule this land. This video ends here. The name of this anime is written inside the description below this video. Thank you for watching my video. If you feel you like it, please click like and subscribe to support me.